St. Lucia, we are back on the second segment of our program, and we now go to deal with what I consider wastage in the public sector. I have said before, I gave an example. I don't know how many 100 cars are available in the public sector. But that having been said, I feel it is time that this administration and pursuing administrations seek to adopt a concept like a renowned car rental, whereby people are properly authorized to deal with the disbursement of government vehicles. Because what has happened there, I feel the same way that these car rental companies, Hertz, Avis, have been in business for several years. They got to be doing something right. And if they take those vehicles and get people to sign out for those vehicles and let there be some form of accountability, I think there could be a great savings. You talk of electricity, phone calls. I have never worked in the government, but talking to individuals, I'm told that millions of dollars are wasted there. And you know, when we talk, for instance, of a 5% wage cut, $18 million, it has been repeatedly asked, what about the balance? If the Prime Minister wants 76 million, where is that money going to come from? So evidently, we're not dealing with the issue, we're just dealing with the cause.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So I would like you to highlight a bit on that.
Okay.
Mary.
About the vehicles in the public service, a lot of the abuse and the misuse of those vehicles are by people at the higher management level.
Okay.
The ministers are given a traveling allowance, and right now they are getting duty-free vehicles. Permanent secretaries get duty-free vehicles.
Okay.
So these people ought not to be using the government vehicles at all.
Okay.
Unless it is a situation where, say for instance, you go into a meeting at the Treasury or the financial center where there's no parking. So the driver now would be called to come and drop you, and when you're ready, the driver would come and pick you up. So that is understandable.
Yes.
But people, ministers, PSs who are taking SLGs to their homes, that should not be allowed. That is not necessary.
What should happen in the case? They should have their own private vehicles?
They have their own private vehicles, and they are being given traveling allowance.
Okay.
And also those private vehicles are duty-free. They can now have a duty-free vehicle.
Okay.
So they shouldn't be utilized. A lot of times, you'd be surprised, the ministry's work is put on the back burner because the minister needs the SLG or the permanent secretary, some of them, because in the Ministry of Commerce, that doesn't happen. And I remember from the time my minister came on board, she was one of the first people who said, ministers, she as a minister, she has her own vehicle. She does not need to use the government vehicle. But occasionally, if she's going, say for instance, far away, Soufret, on a official visit and so on, and she has work to do, that gives her her own hands to be, you know, doing other things while the driver take her. But she does not put her need for the vehicle above the need of the ministry. Also, to drive home and back, the minister never takes the SLG.
A question for you, Mary. Just listening to you now, I mean, it may be difficult for you to tell me how many such vehicles government have, but it's evident quite a few.
There are quite a few. You see them parked by government buildings on afternoons.
Well, I mean, should there not be a pool of vehicles that doesn't have to be necessarily assigned to each ministry? Let us say, I'm just calling a figure. Say they have 50 vehicles now. Instead of having 50, say have maybe 12 vehicles and with drivers. So for those occasions, because if you say that they're not supposed to take it to their homes, then the vehicle is supposed to stay there. And a vehicle is deteriorating because a vehicle is not a cheap item, it's an expensive item. And it's always said that once a vehicle crosses that threshold, it loses 10%. So that is quite a bit of money. So in these dire times, these are the areas I think we need to be focusing on. Because, you know, I'm not trying to take sides for the CSA now, but as you rightly pointed out, why should the 5% be taken from the civil servants right now
when there
are other areas that could be addressed in far bigger quantities? You know? You know, so this is part of my concern. Now, the other thing is, I want to deal with a story that has been circulated here about diplomatic passports. To me, I listen to this story and I don't know why this is even being brought up and what is the truth with all of that. Can you highlight to us what's...
Well, Mr. Chasney, the story has a lot of different sections, so to speak. The first one is about the MOU that I heard people in very high places are saying there is an MOU between myself and your son.
Yes.
Right? Now that MOU that they showed on the agenda, there's no MOU between, there cannot be any MOU between myself and your son on behalf of anybody.
Right.
But the first, they showed a sheet of paper. And I do not know for the life of me, why is it that we have people in high position and they appear to be very illiterate? That is an agenda. You understand? The document they're showing, with the first item is the MOU, the second one is CPSA passports, something like that, about the diplomatic passports, the third one and so on and so forth. There are about 9 items on that agenda. It is an agenda. It is not an MOU. There's no signature on that document. Anybody could type that, reproduce it, and print it out. The first item on that agenda item, the first agenda item on that document is an MOU. But that MOU is an MOU between the CSA and the government of St. Lucia. It is not an MOU between myself and Alan Chasney. It is an MOU between the CSA that came out of the negotiations last year, and it addresses the issue of the $50,000 that we're supposed to be getting over a 3-year period. It's for an education fund and a medical fund. Then there is also the issue of the pensions. Government said they are going to look at the pensions, do a study to determine whether they should increase the public service pension age to the same as the NIC age. And then there was a third item, the agency fee. They were supposed to be looking at getting a legal opinion on the agency fee. These are the 3 of the items in that MOU between the St. Lucia Civil Service Association and the government of St. Lucia. And these people who are looking at this, they cannot for the life of them understand that this is an agenda item. And we were discussing that item to make the opposition, the newly elected political leader, aware that there is such an arrangement between CSA and the government of St. Lucia. And this is where the passport thing, the second item on that agenda is CPSA requesting diplomatic passports for its affiliates. CPSA is Caribbean Public Service Association. It is a regional body that met in Trinidad, and they decided that they would request a seat at CARICOM and diplomatic passports for the heads of each of their affiliate trade union associations, of which I am one right now. I am the president of CSA. But should I move on, then whoever comes is the next person, and so on and so forth. But that is for the entire Caribbean. You understand? That did not originate from St. Lucia. St. Lucia did not even have a say, because I sat at that meeting and I was wondering, what in the name of God would I be doing with a diplomatic passport?
And also, another year or so, you will be out of the government
by
service.
the end of this year.
So, you know, what rationale is there? But that leads me to another question, you know. What is it, I mean, when you figure that the CSA has virtually been a proponent of the St. Lucia Labour Party for years, and all of a sudden, the name Mary Isaac seems to stick out like a sore thumb, all because of what?
Well, I think the first reason is because we are trying to depoliticize the trade union. That is the sole reason that I can think of. We have removed the influence of the Labour Party. We are trying to remove the dominating influence of the Labour Party in the CSA. But we are not doing so just with the Labour Party. We are saying CSA represents members of all political affiliation. Therefore, Mr. Chasney, any politician, any government, any opposition should be able to come into CSA and have a meeting with us whenever they
so desire.
You understand what I'm saying? And we as St. Lucians and as citizens of this country, we as CSA, executive members of CSA representing our members, we have the right to go anywhere and meet anyone to discuss anything that is in the interest of our members.
We want to close for the second segment of our program. be right back.